Hi, can you hear me, Mehroj? Just for
Yes,
confirmation.
yes, it's clear. Thank you.
Yeah, so before starting presentation, although Sailendra has given short introduction of FTM, I just want to say more on what FTM is doing. So it's been 20 years that FTM is established, but then we are working exclusively in monitoring and evaluation since last 10 years. And we are located at Kathmandu, but we have been working in 65 districts already out of 75 districts of Nepal. So we are working basically in education, governance, health, disaster risk reduction, and policy research. And we have got partners like PIN, VSO, Mercy Corps, WHO, and WFP, sorry, WFP, and other international partners like Mathematica. Currently, we are working with Mathematica in one of the nutrition project, and we have also worked with universities like Duke and Durham. So, and we have for the GEC funded projects, we have done evaluation independently for 4 of the projects: Sister for Sister, STEM, Engage, and Aarambha. So, quite a lot of experience that we are sharing within the projects in FGM. Moving ahead, I won't take much long time for FTM's introduction, so I'm moving towards presentation. So today I'm presenting on the findings that came out from the Endline evaluation of cohort 1 of Aarambha project. So the presentation outline, I'll talk about the background of the project at first, and then methodology, which will be followed by findings, and then conclusion. I'll end the presentation with some recommendations that are based on the evidences from the Endline evaluation. LNGB, this Aarambha is LNGB project that is implemented by PIN, which is being implemented in 2 districts, Bara and Rohtak of Province 2. So the project started in 2018, and it will run until 2024. So the modality of project is that they have 4 cohorts, and then reaching out approximately 22 girls in each cohort. So one cohort will run for a year, and then they'll be reaching this much girls in 1 year, and meet 500 girls over the course of 5 years period. Um, uh, so the intervention they are doing is CLC, Community Learning Centers, is the main intervention that PIN is having, where the girls married out of school adolescent girls are enrolled in these classes, and the literacy numeracy sessions are held there. Apart from literacy and numeracy classes, the life skills classes, and which consist of financial literacy, and then ASRH, they are all taught in the CLC classes. Then there is the parental engagement, where there is workshop, or let's say interaction with the parents for creating enabling environment for these girls, most girls, to for their learning, and then their pursue their life plans. They work with community leaders who are called Change Champion as well. So they raise awareness in the community, and they motivate, they interact with the parents, and then motivate girls to enroll back to the schools. They also work with local government for creating, conducive environment, and then for sustainability of the project. There are certain school level activities for teaching quality, some gender sensitive teaching teachers tool, and then some workshop with in school girls and boys to create school environment, conducive school environment. So apart from these, because of the COVID-19, PIN also adopted some distance teaching learning activities using the mobile phones, through which girls were supported in their learning. They also had this radio broadcast, where they had discussion with community leaders around, and then also they had public service announcement around pregnancy and violence. They also had psychosocial support, which was integrated in the life skills session in the CLC itself. So coming to the methodology, um, So these were the evaluation questions that we had in MEL framework. I have shortened it. So we looked at the effectiveness of the the activities that were carried out for developing their literacy, numeracy, and their cognitive as well as non-cognitive life skills. Also, how what impact has project left in their literacy and numeracy and other life skills like household decision making and cognitive and non-cognitive skills. Also, we looked at how project succeeded in creating enabling environment for moose girls to pursue their life plans and also mitigating the harmful effects of child marriage. So what were the challenges that a project faced, and what challenge they face and what positive negative consequences they got during the implementation. So these were the evaluation questions. So coming into the methodology in detail, so we had a longitudinal mixed method where the girls who were contacted in the baseline were followed in Endline as well, and we used qualitative as well as quantitative method for data collection. So it was a quasi-experimental study as PIN had intervention group as well as comparison group. They had intervention in two municipalities of each district, and they had a comparison group in each of the districts. So we collected data from both of the intervention and comparison group. So for the quantitative part, household survey and girls survey was the major method tool we used, and then there were 400 household survey, 400 girls survey for the intervention group, and same number of household and girls survey for the comparison group as well. Also, we followed sequential data collection. Sequential data collection, which meant the data we get from this survey, we did preliminary analysis of this survey data, and based on the findings, we developed some tools for the qualitative data collection, which was used for FGDs and KIIs. So we did 12 FGDs in total and 14 KIIs in total. So beside having such a robust methodology, there are some limitations that we had. Because there was lower representation from age group in the beneficiary itself, we had problem, comparing between the subgroups. So because there was only 6% representation of the 10 to 14 age group, which was one of the limitations. There was a sample attrition of 29%. We had already we had accounted for the sample attrition while we calculated the sample size in the baseline. We had 30% sample attrition accounted, but still we had 29% of the girls from the intervention and then 39% of the girls from the comparison who they were lost from the baseline while coming to the Endline. So major reason was some of the girls had dropped out from the class, and then there were also instances when we were collecting data. Girls were not in their home. They had been to their fathers. Like there are so many reasons that are mentioned in the reports which caused to be attrition. But for this limitation, what we did is we did one-to-one replacement. For which we considered having matching the characteristics of the girls with the new girls who are being replaced. The age, area, the CLC they attended, and their ethnicity were considered while replacing the girls, the lost girls with the new girls. Another was there were certain indicators, for example, parental attitude, which was which might have been overestimated because of the self-reported bias. So this was also the limitation of our inline data, but we have tried our best to get out of what we had, and we had tried to control the biases that we have. But then these are some limitations that we could, we faced during the inline data collection. So our data, we collect the data in December, November, December, started in end of the November, and during that time, lockdown was already lifted, but there were COVID-19, still COVID-19, but it was decreasing. So when everything opened up, when flight was open, we started data collection, and then we followed some protocols for the safety of the evaluation team. So all the COVID-19 protocols that were that WHO recommend, we use that protocol. So physical distance was maintained during FCDs and KIs. We even reduced the number of participants in FCDs. We normally used to have 6 to 12 participants, where we only had 5 to 8 in our FCDs, considering the infectious COVID-19 pandemic. So another was the team was entire evaluation team was provided with masks and gloves and sanitizers to prevent themselves from getting infected by COVID. All the quarantine protocol was followed. Researcher had to be in quarantine, and then they had to be tested PCR before moving on to, after coming back from field and coming into back into the work. So these were the COVID-19 protocols. So let's go to the findings now. I have highlighted major findings. So let's go to the characteristics. In the baseline, majority of girls were Muslim, which is also in the case, also the case in Endline as well. Majority of the sample is represents the Muslim girls. Um, Agriculture was a major source of income of household, which is also the case in baseline. Well, there is increase in some of the poverty characteristics. We had many characteristics under poverty, but then these two characteristics had gone up from baseline. So one was households who were unable to meet basic needs, and the other was households who had gone hungry to sleep many days. So this is, I think, explained by COVID, because if we see another indicator, they had decreased economy due to COVID-19 pandemic. They had lost jobs. Many of the families had lost job, and they had their economy was decreasing. So that might explain this increase in poverty characteristics. Coming to the barriers, household chore, it is again the significant barrier, which was also the case in baseline. One of the most significant barrier for girls learning was household chore, and which is the same case in Endline as well. In Endline, 60% of the girls spend most of the time in household chores, and this is even higher for the age group 15 to 19. So this is one of the significant barrier. Uh, Also, there was increase in fairly unsafe or very unsafe to travel to school. The school it doesn't mean CLC here. It means the school that is in their community, like government school that they can enroll into. So the reason for this is parental fear. The parents fear that they are teased by boys on their way to school, or the girls may elope with any boy. So they are fearful about these things. Also, they in this cohort, they also say that risk of COVID-19 made them, this was one of the barriers. So they made the parents were fearful about these things. So they reported that it was fairly unsafe or very unsafe to travel to school. So these two barriers has come up as a strong barrier in N9. So let's go to the findings, and let me start with the outcome label. Um, for the learning outcomes, for literacy, we used EGRA tool to measure the literacy of girls in Endline. So the result is, for the intervention group, there is a sharp increase in the mean EGRA score from baseline to Endline. Also, if we see in the comparison group, there is also increase in the score. However, the increase in the intervention group is quite higher than the comparison group, which is shown by the difference in difference. So difference in difference is what we calculated by using statistical software, is the difference between the baseline and Endline value and the difference between the baseline and inline value is again higher. So it shows that the difference that is in the difference, the increase in the score in intervention group is higher than the comparison group, which is shown by the beta value of the DID. Coming to the numeracy, which was tested by EGMA tool. Again, in the intervention group, we can see there is sharp increase in the mean EGMA score, even though there is increase in the mean score in comparison group as well. Again, the DID result shows that the increase and the gap is, it's not. Please be clear that it's not this gap, but the difference between the baseline and endline score of intervention minus the baseline and inline score of this one. So it is a statistical analysis which we did, which shows that the improvement in intervention group is significantly higher than the comparison group. So, so concluding on the literacy and numeracy outcomes that we have seen here from these graphs, we must say that PIN has left, very positive impact among the girls who are marginalized, and on top of that, they are some of them have never been to, at least 50% of them had never been to school, and also on top of that, they are married and have a lot of household chores. So commendable job PIN has done in here. Moving on to transition outcome. So when we collected the data, we could not observe the transition, and I'll come later on why this happened. Only few of the girls are currently employed in both the comparison and intervention group. And in the intervention group, few of the girls have enrolled into the school, and this was found from the qualitative findings. So there are very few girls, very few girls who reported that they want to enroll back to school. I think this is obvious because most of the girls were, they represented the age group 15 to 19. They were older age group, and they wanted to start a safe profession rather than going back to school and learning. So I think that is one of the obvious finding. And why we could not observe the transition is because as I told, 15 to 19 age group, these girls wanted to have a safe profession, and because project could not provide training, vocational training, because of COVID-19, so they could, the clear transition could not be seen. However, during our qualitative discussion, many girls, they reported that they want to start their safe profession. Sustainability score we have calculated based on the guidelines provided by GC. So the baseline value was 10%, and the inline value is 31.25%, which is again an increment from baseline to inline. So this is because of the community stakeholders' attitude had changed considerably from baseline to inline. The attitude around girls learning and attitude around early marriage, this has changed significantly from baseline to inline if we see the quantitative data as well. So for the system level, there was an encouraging commitment from local government. Some of the local government also provided a written commitment to PIN that they want to start CLC on their own, like from their own budget. But having said that, because of the pandemic, their priority had shifted towards preventing and controlling this pandemic rather than starting, literacy classes for the girls. So even though they were committed, we could not, it was not reflected into the practice, and this was because of the pandemic. Intermediate outcomes, which were the enablers for the outcomes Aarambha project had. So first one was improved attendance. So we had an indicator that 85% or more girls would attend 85% or more of the numeracy and literacy sessions. So baseline value was almost 42%. And then Endline, it's almost 24%. So it's reduced. It is because of, I think it's just because of this 85% level, not all girls attended 85% of the classes, but then overall attendance rate was good. When we analyze, when we, dig deeper into this data, we found that girls were not attending classes during festival seasons and during the crop harvesting season. So the attendance was low at that time. Maybe these were factors. Also, this baseline data had only 1 month data, but then we had like 9 months data in here. So aggregated value is quite lower than baseline. So I think we have also put some recommendation around revising the indicator on itself, because the airline target was 80%. 80% of the girls would attend 85% of the numeracy and literacy classes, but it did not happen, unfortunately, in the airline. So this was, again, I would like to add, this analysis was done based on the data provided by PIN. We did not collect this data. So another indicator, household decision making. In the baseline, we had quantitative data around this, and we found that it was overestimated because of the self-reported bias again. So we had agreed with FM to collect this data qualitatively in the Endline. So these findings are based on the qualitative data. So what we have found is girls have, there is improvement in girls' confidence level in at least putting their words in front of their parents. In the baseline, they could not speak in front of their in-laws, or they could not say anything about when it comes to decision making. But then in the airline, at least they have that developed that confidence to have their say in many decisions. We also found that they can decide on matters related to family planning and contraception. These matters with husband and mother-in-law as well. To use. However, their decision remains in small purchases like vegetables or clothes for themselves, or what gifts they can have, things like that. But then when it came to decisions like making life plans and then joining schools or starting safe profession, or maybe taking training, going out from the village for taking training or things like that, matter like that, they didn't have their, their decision was not decisive. The household head did not listen to them. Actually, the practice was that even the older member of the family was the decision maker, and they didn't even hear the voice of boys even. So it's not about married girls or married even though the main finding is that even though they have the confidence to speak up in the household, but their voices are not heard when it comes to bigger decision making. Life skills index, in the baseline we had calculated a score based on the 3 attributes: family planning, financial literacy, and general self-efficacy of girls. So combining these 3, we had calculated life skill index. But in the Endline, because the financial literacy sessions were in the CLC, so it was and they are reported in a categorical way. So what we have seen is there is positive change in knowledge and attitude of family related to family planning and contraception among all of the girls, no matter intervention or comparison. However, when we see the practice, we have noted that the practice of using contraception has gone up, which is twice as much as in the comparison group. So in the intervention group is twice as much as in the comparison group. And one of the finding I would like to highlight here is Muslim girls. For Muslim girls, using contraception is like going against their religion. So That might be the reason that we had only 4.5% of the Muslim girls in the intervention group in the baseline who were using contraception, which has gone up to 34.4% who are using contraception in the Endline. So this is one of the, again, one of the very nice job that the ASRH session in the CLCs have done for these Muslim girls. So general self-efficacy, overall, it has improved from baseline to N9. As I told earlier, they have become more confident than in baseline. And there is 10% increment noted in the category, 70% of the mean value of GSE in age group 10 to 14, which is 16% increment in the age group. This is in the intervention group. So onto this, as I told earlier, because of COVID-19, school level activities could not be completed. So outcome indicator, so intermediate outcome indicator 3 were related to school related activities. So that way all of the indicators were dropped in the Endline. So I'm not presenting on them. So indicator on the intermediate outcome indicator 4, where we measure the percentage of Muslim adults and girls families with changed attitude. As I told earlier, it has gone up, and even more than the target set at baseline. So there were a few questions around attitude, and we use those to calculate the score. Which we called attitude change index score. So it was 2.35% in the baseline, and PIN had a target of 2.58%, and it raised to 2.60%, which is again a good thing. So use of cash grant, as I said earlier, there was no vocational training, and PIN was supposed to distribute cash grant after they finish vocational training to girls, and after that, after girls have made their life plans. Even though during our qualitative consultations, girls say that they have made life plans and they want to start their safe profession. But then they had not got any cash grants. So sorry, can you hear me? I just got a message that my voice is cutting. So
it's okay.
It's fine now, Rubina.
It's fine, yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. So none of the families had got these cash grants. However, during our consultations, qualitative inquiry, both the girls and the families, they said that they are keen to get the vocational training and then start their safe profession using these cash grants. So this is at the time we collected data. Maybe the situation has changed now, and I think PIN should. Follow the girls and then see what changes they have seen now. So apart from the indicators, we had other data collected as well. One of them was safeguarding. So how many the percentage of girls who could identify way to report in case of any abuse. So most of the girls reported they would report to police. So distance teaching learning, which was one of the midterm response plan caused by COVID-19 that was carried out by PIN. So we had corrected data around this as well. So we have some interesting finding in here. So among 400 girls in the intervention group, only 4 girls reported that they had not attended distance teaching learning activities. And among other girls, 97% said that they are quite satisfied with the DTL class. And also 92% found it to be, and also 93% of the girls said that it helped a lot during lockdown. Even the phone-based support meant a lot for their learning. It helped them remind, those that were taught in the class, and they could do the homeworks and all. So even though it was mobile-based learning, it was found to be effective as reported by the girls. Another COVID response was radio programs. So they had this public service announcement on pregnancy and protection from violence. Surprisingly, I don't know. Sorry, only sorry, only 50% of the girls said that they are program. And among them who were aware, 96% of them heard the messages that were aired from the radio, and 99% understood the messages. And then 98% found the messages to be so. Girls who were aware of these were lower. I mean, it seems only 50%. The other, among those who were aware, other indicators seems to be quite good. So another radio program was this discussion with community leaders about child marriage and all. So when we asked about this radio program, 28% of girls said that they are aware of the program, and then 90% said they have heard these messages. 98% have understood the message aired, and then 113, 69% have used the information that they heard in these radio programs. So these were the findings, and coming to the conclusion. So again, a literacy score was increased from baseline to Endline, and so was numeracy score. Successful transition is yet to be achieved by project at the time of data collection. Improvement in community level sustainability has been seen, and more effort needs for system level. Attendance, the target set by PIN has not yet been met. Decision-making girls have become able to have their say in the household. However, not for big decisions that is made in the household. In family planning, their knowledge has increased and positive attitude has increased, and also the practice of use of contraception has gone up. Girls' self-efficacy has increased from baseline to Endline. So based on this evidences, FTM has made some recommendations based on the evidences. So even though the mean score of literacy and numeracy both were higher, there were specific soft tasks. For example, reading passages in IGRA and subtraction, multiplication, and division in IGMA, which girls found them to be difficult. So that thing is one. And another thing is that there is a group of like mix of girls. There is 10 to 14 age group, and then 15 to 19 age group, and there is the group of girls who have never been to school, and there is a group of girls who have dropped out. So there is like heterogeneous group in there. So and when we did the skills gap analysis, that we found that the proficiency level has not, the girls has not reached the girls in the sample have not reached the proficiency level. So so there might be, there is something missing in the intervention. So we suggest that maybe it would be great if PIN could have a learning session according to the subgroups, like different learning classes for never been to school, and different learning classes for those who are dropped out. So that might help in bridging the gap, the skills gap, the girls are having. So this is one of the most important, I think. So another one is none of the girls, very few girls were interested in enrolling back to school. So it would be great if PIN could conduct some motivational classes to make them enroll back to school. Even though transition to starting safe profession is also a good thing, but enrolling back to school is equally important. So maybe conducting some motivational session would encourage them. So detail was it was reported to be quite effective, but then what we think is one-to-one coaching and home visits would be more helpful, or maybe conducting session in small groups that would help them learn more, or and then close this gap of that proficiency level. So maybe pins should consider this as well. For the transition, because most of the girls said they wanted tailoring or embroidery, only these two things were in our qualitative discussion. Only these two things were told by the girls. They wanted either tailoring or embroidery, so they didn't have any other profession they wanted to have. So maybe is it because of their pins would show a wider horizon of a profession they can start, maybe other profession as well. Yeah, so because we could not truly measure transition, successful transition, we could not show successful transition because the planned activities were not delivered in time. So it should be considered for other cohorts. In sustainability, we had this household chore burden was increased from baseline to Endline in one of the age group. So parental engagement activities should be continued, and even it should be intensified for creating the enabling environment for girls. These radio programs were one of the COVID response activities, but considering the effect it has brought about in the girls and parents, it should be continued and expanded in non-COVID time as well. So these are found to be effective. PIN should consider for expanding radio programs as well. So what we felt is it is too early for measuring system level indicators because it was only 9 months of intervention, and then we collected data. Uh, I mean, we can't see much changes in 1 year in the system level and in sustainability. So it would be better if we could collect some data at the final evaluation to see the changes in the system level. So this should be considered. Regarding intermediate outcomes, I think we need to revise attendance indicator. So in the festival seasons and crop harvesting season, as the girls were attending less, so what could be the alternative ways to engage them in learning? So it should be considered. So for household chores, maybe the parental engagement, as I already said, parental engagement activities should be done, and then other gender sensitive activities, because we found that not many boys were engaged in the household chores. So other activities should also be included for household as well. So thank you for listening to me, and if you have any questions, please.
Thank you, Rubina. That was a really comprehensive presentation. We have one question from Ella, and Ashika and I did attempt to respond to it, but I'm sure you'd have more to add to it. And that was around the comparison girls and if they attended schools. She's mentioned government schools. Do you just want to go over the findings that we have around why the learning levels increased for these girls? I know that we've discussed this in a lot of detail in our meetings.
Yeah. So when I was presenting, I knew this question would come because the comparison girls also had increased score in both literacy and numeracy. So what we have concluded from our qualitative discussion, we took this opportunity from our baseline survey we did for cohort 2. We did some qualitative consultations in the comparison cohort as well. So what we found is that, as I already said, most of the sample represents the Muslim girls. So these Muslim girls go to the madrasa that is in their community. And interestingly, what happened was in the baseline, there was no English maths class in Nepali curriculum in their madrasa. But then between baseline and inline, what happened was there was this curriculum started in the madrasa as well. So it made them, learn Nepali and math. So that might be one of the reasons that caused these girls to achieve this score in line from the comparison group as well. So does that answers your question?
Yes, thank you. That's really interesting, and yes, good to know. And is it the case that cohort 2 girls are younger than cohort 1 on the whole?
Um, I think maybe Bharat can respond, but yes, because PIN has also enrolled unmarried girls this time, and there are many 10 to 14 younger girls in cohort 2. So do you want to add, Bharat?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Ravina. Great presentation, by the way, that had a quick snapshot of the program itself. So, considering what we learned during the process of cohort one, we did realize the transition gaps, challenges that we faced. So, before we did the preparation for cohort two, let's say, we had our own review adaptation with the fund manager team, and then we kind of discussed to broaden the scope of eligibility criteria given how frequent and the child marriages are happening in the ground. The prevalence rate is really high, so it would be it would be really beneficial for the community to include all these unmarried young girls who are at higher risk of child marriage. So we included all of those girls in cohort 2. So far the updates is that now, just to give you a brief update on what's happening with these young girls, is that now since the government has started the school enrollment campaign for new academic calendar year, the project has itself started doing the consultation with the families, girls, and also the schools to ensure how these girls can enroll back to the school when the calendar year starts. So far around 55 to 60% of the girls, of the total girls from cohort 2, are in line to get enrolled in the school for this year. Hopefully that will retain until the whole process is complete though. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Bharat. Any other questions?
I did have a question. It's Deborah, if I may.
Yeah, yes, sure.
Right. Yeah, I was wondering if there's. Thank you very much, by the way, for the really full and comprehensive presentation. I was wondering if there had been any more thinking about. You mentioned about the running classes for subgroups of girls where the progress had not been as good as expected for certain subgroups, and whether there'd been, is thinking about the fine balance between providing targeted and more tailored support for a specific group, and then the danger of marginalizing a specific group because of that. Has there been any more thinking about how that might be done? Because I think you mentioned this. And
so again, over to you, Bharat. I think you can respond
Sure.
better.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Thank you, Ravina, and thank you for the question. This has been one prime concern for us as well. Given how a group of girls are enrolled in one particular CLC, so their learning outcomes, their trained, their aptitude aren't similar. So one thing that came out good with COVID was we started doing the small group learning as well. So when we decide that we want to continue the learning through in small groups, so we kind of like dissected our learning center in a group of 3 4 girls. So when we started doing the grouping of the girls, we ensured that all these factors are considered: their age, their availability, coming to the classes, how much time they need, and all of that were considered. So eventually one CLC, before pre-COVID, it used to run for 2 hours a day, but after capacitating the facilitators, it would run in 3 different sessions depending on a total number of girls in one particular CLC. So this has been considered, but we are yet to see how it has impacted the learning of the girls yet. But yeah, something that we have considered within the program.
I see. Great. Good. Thanks so much.
Thank you for those questions. I think we can leave it here unless the project wants to make any final comments. We have 6 minutes.
More than a comment, I really wanted to learn something more from FTM, given how they are not just with the project with PIN with Aarambha, but also with other stakeholders like the Engage and then Sister for Sister. Like they have a very long experience working with LNGB, GCT. So I was curious, like how the program intervention are working across these different projects, and what we can learn from all of those projects, especially working in province too, if that makes sense. If you have any answer to that, yeah, to FTM colleagues. Thank you.
Abhijit, would you like to, Abhijit or Salindra, anyone?
I
Would you
think
like
probably
to?
we need another session for that, isn't it? Highlighting the learning. Maybe Abhijit, would you like to say a few things, or maybe we can arrange one session on that, our learning from our different projects, and which could be useful for the team as well. Yeah.
That's a good idea. Actually, we could
Yeah.
invite all the Nepal projects, and maybe
Yeah.
FTM can do a cross-cutting piece or an
Yeah.
overarching piece across the
Yeah.
project.
Let's do that. That will be a good thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, just to add to that, just to add to Shailendra and Mehruz, I think we've been involved in GEC evaluations for the past 6 or 7 years, I guess. So we have gathered quite a lot of learning. And Balaji, I think, yeah, definitely we would love to share that with you. I think it would require a slightly longer session. So probably if we can schedule that maybe sometime later, we would love to share our findings, learnings from our GEC experience.
Actually, I mean, I think last month, Asika has made a presentation on one of the specific activity of the this GEC project about the collecting and sensitive data things to the wider audience based on our experiences with a couple of the GC projects. So we can do a kind of comparisons and make some learning which will be useful for all the stakeholders. That we can do.
Yeah, definitely. We could do that. That session was really impactful, I would say. And maybe we could share the same session with the whole team of Nepal too.
Yeah.
I agree. I saw some of it, and it was very useful. So I think that's a really good idea. Thank you for proposing that, Bharat. I think we can end it here. Thank you so much for your participation and for all your work. It was a really good session, very informative, and a great presentation. I will be sharing the slides and the recording so you can circulate it more widely with other colleagues who couldn't attend. I know there's a lot of FM colleagues who were interested, so I'll be sharing the recording with them as well. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Stay
Thank
safe.
you.
Happy weekend.